Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to another Morgan James book launch. My name's Jim Howard. I'm the publisher for Morgan James. And today we have an author that I'm really excited for you guys to meet. His name is Michael Murphy, and Michael is the author of When I Fell, How I Rerouted My Life and Found Strength in a Severed Spine. Michael, thank you for taking the time today to talk with us.
Thank you so much, Jim. Thank you for having me.
Oh man, we are excited. What an amazing book, an amazing journey. And I'm so thankful that, as we talked about even months back when we were just talking about publishing the book, how thankful we are to be a part of your journey and share your story with the world. But, there are a lot of people out there who have had traumatic accidents or are, disabled for whatever reason. What makes your experience unique, and what compelled you to write this book?
Absolutely. I'll go out on a limb and sort of say that my experience isn't exactly unique. Granted, I will admit that there's certain ways in how I sort of handled my accident in terms of my attitude, my effort, and my early on acceptance of my spinal cord injury and my positivity throughout the last 14 years. Yeah, a lot of that can be considered unique. But on the other hand, there are 18,000 new cases of people with spinal cord injuries every single year. And that's just in the US alone. And I know, and that's just in 1 year. And I know a lot of those people are facing it the way I did. I know a lot of personal people who have faced it with the same attitude and the same effort and positivity, and they are doing amazing things. So in that sense, my story isn't that unique. There's a lot of similar stories like mine, but I guess I'll couple that with the fact that a lot of those stories just haven't been told. Mm-hmm. We're living in a time where people with disabilities have never been more accepted into the mainstream. They've never been more celebrated. They're on TV. You see them out and about everywhere. But and specifically with spinal cord injuries, and not to say anything about all the other traumatic events, but I think there's more stories that need to be told. And the fact that I think that I have a love of writing, I have a passion for it, I think I'm okay at it, that sort of led me to a place where I actually put pen to paper and I actually wrote down my story. And hopefully that sort of inspires a new wave of stories like mine. And there's a lot of them out there, but I think there needs to be more. And I think that's also one of the impetuses for writing this book is to get my message out there, to share my story, but just to start to get more of those stories out there. And I think we need that. And this is just the beginning of mine. When I Fell is part one of a 3-part series that I'm rolling out over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And I hope it inspires other people to write stories like mine.
Wow. And the thing is that we have our stories, right? And our stories align with other people who are on a similar journey. And sometimes those people don't know that there's other people just like them or who are dealing with the same things that they're dealing with. And the situation could be a little different. It may not be the same injury, may not be the same way, it may not be the same thing, but the limitations, the mindsets, the possibilities can all be very similar. And when we share our stories, man, to me, that's just one of the best things I think that we can do for people, because it allows the reader to see someone who's just like them, who can, and it gives them that opportunity to pull down what I call that veil of vulnerability, right? So they're a little bit more vulnerable when they can align with someone else's journey, and they can let that information penetrate them and hopefully impact them. So, man, I am so thankful you shared your story and your journey, but you also bring a lot in the book about, other things. So you say that one of your motivations for writing this book, I'd seen this, was an awareness to a relatively new science called posttraumatic growth. So how did you first hear about that? And, what role did it play in your recovery? And more importantly, why is that so important?
Yeah, and I'm so glad you brought that up. And you're right, this is post-traumatic growth, the acronym PTG, is relatively new. It was first came around in the 1990s. It was first coined in the 1990s, but the idea of strength through suffering has been around for millennia. But I actually heard about this a couple years ago from a friend of mine. I was actually he was actually reading a really early version of my manuscript around the time when I was shopping around to agents and publishers, and he came back and he said it has a lot of potential. But he was like, Google and look up something called post-traumatic growth. Never heard about it before. I was like, okay, and he said, try to maybe find a way to weave this into your story, and I think it'll fit and it'll resonate with a lot of people. So the next couple of years, that's what I did, and it has led to what is now in my book now, When I Fell. And essentially, it's like I said, it's strength through suffering. And one of the amazing things is as I was digging into the research of post-traumatic growth and what it is and how clinicians and professionals are pulling it out of people and are leading people towards it after trauma, it sort of stopped me in my tracks, because I realized I had been living with post-traumatic growth. I have been doing scientifically proven exercises such as writing my story, trying new experiences like adaptive sports, being vulnerable, talking to people, a spiritual awakening, realizing I'm stronger because I went through my initial trauma in 2007. And it just sort of hit me that I have been living with this. I've been doing things to help me have more growth after my trauma, but I'd never heard of it for a decade. I had never heard of this. And that part of me was angry. Part of me wanted to just go shout this out to the world, because I think people need to know about this. And so in my book, and I do not claim to be a professional psychologist, I don't claim to be a professional in this field, but I do have a master's degree. I do have the ability to research stuff. And I think I wove this into the story in a way that will help spread this to the masses. I'm sort of considering myself just like a middleman and a messenger, getting it from all the academics to people living in the real world who need this stuff. Because people who are initially coming out of whatever trauma it is, spinal cord injury, traumatic car accident, or you could be a rape victim, or just any victim of something that has uprooted your life so much that it has essentially flipped your worldview upside down, where nothing is going to be the same again. You can't go back. You have to go forward, and things are just different forever. And I think people need to know about this, because it can help a lot of people, and it's helped me without even knowing it. And going back to that statistics I said, where there's 18,000 new cases of SCIs in America in just 1 year. That's just 1 year. So the sad reality is that there are people walking around right now who haven't had their spinal cord injury. And I hope when that unfortunate day comes and they become one of the stats, one of the numbers like I did in 2007, that they can find a book like mine and it can help them. And they can realize that even though I'm going through this, even though my life feels shattered and I can't put the pieces back together, you can still make a beautiful mosaic out of the pieces that remains, and you can still go forward with an amazing life. And there's so much growth and strength that can come from your trials, your tribulations, and your traumas, and all those tough times. And yes, it sucks in the moment, but strength will come, and it takes time for people. Some people it's a couple of years, some people it's a lifetime. But the statistics say that 75% of people will experience a traumatic event, and the academics have found a large percentage of those people will show some sign of growth after their trauma.
Wow. Wow. I think that is so true. And oftentimes we get caught up in what I call the so what, right? We get caught up in the what's happened to us and why did it happen? And now we're so caught up in the what can't we do because of this or whatever. But that now what is so important in it. And I think that's what you're a perfect example of is, okay, this happened, but now I've got to live, and now I've got to move, and now I've got to breathe, and now I've got to do other things, and finding new ways to do it. And you find yourself stronger in other areas that you never even knew you could do. And you talked about that in the book so beautifully, and you're such an inspiration to everyone. So there's even so much more, you guys out there watching this, that we're not talking about today, that's in the book that Michael has done and accomplished. And he talks about it in his book. But man, it's just amazing to know what the human spirit can do when you don't just have a can-do attitude, but when you have a will-do attitude. And Michael has that. So Michael, talking about that, and I think that brings us into maybe my next question, which is, there are all kinds of challenges I know that you faced and that everyone's going to face when they go through a situation like this. So what's maybe the most difficult challenge that you've overcome, and then what's been your most rewarding?
Absolutely. In terms of my most difficult challenge, I'll sort of give you two right here. The first one, the most difficult to overcome, has been my pursuit of my Paralympic dream, simply because of the fact that I have not overcome it yet. Wow. I set a goal to be a Paralympic athlete early on when I found adaptive sports in around 2009. I set that bar really high. I started off as a hand cyclist. I transitioned to skiing and moving out to Colorado here. I'm literally still chasing that dream, and it could be another 5 years. So I haven't overcome that challenge yet. So that's one of them. Another challenge is, I'd have to say, is in the last year. A year ago, I had my son. So I've been doing the whole dad thing during the pandemic, but then also recently, and you could probably see I'm wearing this thing around my chest. I had surgery 2 weeks ago to help stop and fix my second spinal cord injury. And my second spinal cord injury. I didn't know that was possible, but back in October, I started seeing changes in my body, whether it was a reduction in my spasms, changes in bowel, bladder function, sexual function, pain in my back. And I got an MRI, and they found out that right below all my rods and screws that were put in my back in 2007, all the bending, lifting, and twisting of 14 years put pressure right below where those rods and screws stopped. And it was pinching my L1 vertebrae, which is pinching my spine, and essentially giving me a second spinal cord injury. And over the last 6 months, that has actually been incredibly difficult for me to deal with, to come to terms with, partially because it stopped my skiing season this year. I haven't really been on the slopes. I was supposed to be ski racing and training. I've also kind of been through some dark times because I haven't really been able to work out. I've been in a lot of pain. And it's also, ironically, and I'm a Murphy and I live by Murphy's Law, I'm dealing with my second spinal cord injury as I am leading up to the decade-long awaited book launch for my first book, where I'm talking about my first spinal cord injury. So all this is happening at the same time, and I'm reliving all of this stuff. And there's been some really, really tough days where, it's been tough to even bend over and pick up my little boy, which I can't do now. And I have to wear this another shell around my torso for another 3 months. So I'm literally living all this over again. And it's definitely been tough, but at the same time, it's been very rewarding, especially the whole parent part. I was living for 13 years as a paraplegic, and then in that 14th year, I had my kid, and all the challenges that go with being a parent, and then trying to figure out how to do it in a wheelchair, and then with the second spinal cord injury in a pandemic when all our family are back on the East Coast and we're doing this alone. But it's been such a blessing, and it's been so rewarding. And now that I get to do this whole book launch that I've been working on for so long, I feel so blessed to be doing this and to even have these challenges, because I'm actually get to see how I'm facing this again, because I have the benefit of 13 years of being a paraplegic and the first time around, but now I get to do it again and challenge myself again and really see kind of what I'm made of. And if the stuff I'm writing in my book, if I'm really living up to that. But I'd have to say the most rewarding challenge is to being a dad.
There's nothing like it.
Right.
I can tell you that. Until until you reach my age and your son has a son.
I can't.
That just blows everything.
I can't even think about that. He just turned 1 2 weeks ago. I cannot even think. I can't even think about him even going to like kindergarten, let alone being a grandfather. But man, I see the love in my parents' eyes, and I see it in yours. And man, yeah.
Yeah, it's, it's absolutely incredible. But your journey is never going to end, and that's such a true message for every one of us, right? There's always going to be that ups and downs, and even when you think you've got your hands on the thing that's going to make it all work, and even when you've got a handle on everything that's happened, and you're moving where you you need to move, there's something else that's going to pop up. But it's that spirit of overcoming that you have already represented in your book and in your life up to this point, that's going to get you through this journey and get you into the next.
Absolutely.
But man, I am so excited to be a part of your journey and be on board with the book. It's an amazing book. So if people are watching this right now, maybe they've got a copy of the book, maybe they're waiting on a copy to arrive. And I encourage all of you out there, get a copy of Michael's book. It is inspiring, if nothing else, but it's great information. How can people connect with you, Michael, to learn more?
Yeah, absolutely. It's super easy. You can either go to whenifell.com, or you can go to michaelmurphyspeaks.com, or on Instagram, I'm at Murphy Speaks. On Facebook, I'm at Michael Murphy Speaks. So it's really easy to get in touch with me. It's easy to find. I know there's a lot of Michael Murphys out there, but yeah, whenifell.com, michaelmurphyspeaks.com, at Murphy Speaks, and at Michael Murphy Speaks on Facebook. And you can reach me.
Awesome. Well, for those watching, I know I've said it, but Michael's book is available everywhere books are sold. So if you haven't already, get your copy. I know you're going to enjoy it, and you're going to want to share it with other people. Michael, thank you so much for, one, as I've said before, just taking the time to share your story and write this book. What an awesome task that is, to come to the point that you're comfortable sharing a hard story, but then following through and putting that whole journey down on paper for other people to read and be inspired by, and allowing us to be a part of your family. So thank you for that. And thank you for taking the time today to talk with us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jim. I really appreciate it. It's been a privilege and an honor. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you guys for watching. And we hope to see you on our next one.